My unforgettable journey through the magnificent Crimean Peninsula continues. During these few days, I have collected a lot of information about the history, culture and customs of the Crimean Tatars. I believe that it was interesting for you too, dear viewers. But there is still a lot of unknown ahead, because as they say, the more I learn, the more I understand that I know nothing. What preserves the roots of any nation, its traditions, customs, and makes it distinctive is, of course, its crafts. The Crimean Tatars have long been famous for a variety of crafts and passing on these skills from generation to generation. For many centuries, have formed a unique culture. How do the ancient crafts of the Crimean Tatars look today? How do they differ from the occupations of other peoples? In today's episode, we will look for answers to these questions. The Crimean Tatar craftsmen since ancient times, along with their own skills, have adopted the skills of the peoples of the Caucasus, Iran and Central Asia. Thanks to this, they have mastered advanced techniques. This ancient tradition continues to this day. And today, on the peninsula, the Crimean Tatars are actively developing the crafts of their ancestors. The main goal is the revival of culture and the preservation of the history of the origin of the Crimean Tatars. Local craftsmen have been decorating their products with traditional ornaments for a long time. All this has its own philosophy, because each pattern has its own unique meaning. The whole palette of beauty of traditional Crimean Tatar ornamentalism is presented in architecture, blacksmith's craft, household items, and of course, national clothes. Each detail of the Crimean Tatar costume has its own specific meaning. Today, old samples of national clothes are on display in the Crimean Tatar Museum of Cultural and Historical Heritage. Usually, when we talk about clothes, this idea of fashion, beauty, aesthetics is immediately associated with it. But if we talk about the Crimean Tatar clothes, then first of all there is another associative series. This is, first of all, the sacred significance of clothes. Well, cultural and local peculiarities left their mark on the formation of the Crimean Tatar national costume. Women's and men's suits have a distinctive silhouette. It resembles the letter X, hourglass. That is, an energy funnel up and an energy funnel down. And therefore, both men and women always emphasize the belt. Moreover, women do not wear a belt to emphasize the waist. All women wear belts, regardless of the figure and age, because the waist area, the belt area, is a bioenergetic knot that needs protection. Indeed, women's belts deserve special attention. Their main decoration is silver or gold buckles. Made using filigree technique, they were a real work of art.
Традиционный пояс крымско-татарский, юзум-япрак называется.
The traditional Crimean Tatar belt is called Uzim Japirak. We have not seen analogues of such jewelry in any culture. It is the shape of the grape leaf. It is the symbol of fertility. Every girl, after getting married, received such a belt. It is very thin in itself compared to others. Elmira Asanova is a hereditary jeweler, a master of making national jewelry using the traditional filigree technique. The jeweler skillfully pulls the silver wire like a thread, twisting it into fancy patterns and giving the most beautiful shapes. She seems to paint with silver. But this amazing technique was almost lost by the Crimean Tatars. If not for Elmira's father, the great master, the now deceased Headdress Asanov. In the 40s of the last century, Crimean Tatars were deported from Crimea. The people expelled from their native lands were forced to start a new life in a foreign land. This greatly influenced their jewelry art. Unfortunately, this influence was not positive. Crimean Tatar filigree was on the verge of extinction. Almost half a century after the deportation, this man at the end of the 90s of last century, having returned to his native peninsula, began to revive the traditional jewelry art of the Crimean Tatars. After all, Headdress Asanov was a hereditary master. His father was also a jeweler. From an early age, Headdress grew up watching a parent work and of course could not help but become interested in this craft. Having matured, he carefully preserved in his mind childhood memories, and with them the forms of patterns and the technique of making jewelry. So literally, from memory, Headdress began to recreate the family craft. The result is the revived secrets of jewelry art and more than 12 craftsmen personally trained by him. The ability of the Crimean Tatars to weave beautiful patterns from precious metals is very different from the techniques of other peoples.
Отец, еще не зная, что филигранщиков не осталось, он просто себе поставил стол, ну, на пенсии.
Father, not knowing that there were no filigree workers left, he just put a chair for himself. He was retired. A worker put a chair and he was busy recollecting. And somehow he left the work unfinished. In the morning I woke up and sat down at his work chair drinking coffee. And by myself I took some tools. He did not show it to me. Some kind of guesswork. I started to make details, seeing some elements lying next to this work.
Догадка какая-то. Он мне не показывал это. Какая-то догадка. Я начала делать детали, видя какие-то элементы, лежащие рядом с этой работой.
The daughter of Headdress Asanov, Elmira, is the only female jeweler on the entire peninsula. In the old days, only men owned this craft. According to the craftswoman, the demand for Crimean Tatar jewelry is growing. Therefore, she not only continues her father's work, but also successfully does her own business. I was pleasantly surprised that in the modern Crimean Tatar society, it is young people who strive to preserve and revive the culture and traditions of their people. There are quite a few young craftsmen on the peninsula, and sometimes whole families are engaged in the revival of cultural values. I would like to introduce you to one of these families. This is the couple of Gusenov masters. Hello.
Oh, alaikum assalam. Hoş geldiniz.
Welcome. Yes, it is obvious that I ended up in the dwelling of talented artisans. This is a real museum. Thank you. Eldar, you probably already guessed the reason for my visit. While researching the history of the Tatar people, I became interested in your patterns. They say that each of them has its own meaning. It seems to me that no one can tell about this better than you. Would you mind sharing your secrets with me? Of course, we will tell you about it and show it. This is Eldar Gusenov, an artist, designer and porter. He studies traditional forms of pottery, revives their original names and uses, and is engaged in reconstruction. Eldar loves to play with a variety of shapes and patterns, which he has mastered to perfection. He depicts national ornament on his ceramics and gives them a Crimean Tatar flavor. And his wife, Alime, is a skilled embroiderer. She is proficient in several techniques. In addition, Alime is one of the few Crimean craftswomen who own the method of embroidery with beads. And while studying the patterns that her grandmothers embroidered, Alime decorates them with traditional scarves, marama, national tubiteki, and covers for the Quran. As I said before, Eldar not only creates various clay products, but also deeply studies national ornamentalism. In the Crimean Tatar culture, there is an ornamental structure. There is a male structure, there is a female structure. And each of these motifs was embroidered on certain items of the Crimean Tatar decor, on clothes. Each sign, here you use these symbols, you can convey socially significant information. For example, this panorama depicts a structure in which only female characters are used. This ornamental composition is called the path of a woman. That is from the Mendel. The Mendel is the sign of a girl, a young girl. Mendel framed, in such a frame it is already a sign of a girl ready for marriage. Continuation of the family. This is a rose. She is depicted with claws. Claws are a sign of protection, the ability to defend and protect their own future offspring of their child. This is already a sign of a woman who has given birth to a woman, who was born by a woman, a married woman. And a carnation is a sign of an elderly person. In this case, it is the sign of the grandmother. These three structures, if you combine it, will be an S-shaped element. This is the designation for Su. Su means water in Crimean Tatar translation. Water gives life. A woman also gives life. Modern masters now use the language of ornament and transmit important socially significant information to the future generation or our compatriots at the moment. Yes, traveling around Crimea, I often met such ornaments on a variety of objects, but I had no idea what a deep meaning they have. Each pattern has its own meaning and place. Nevertheless, the details of the ornament of the Crimean Tatar people are repeated on different products and give them a special meaning. For example, a pattern from a headscarf of an unmarried girl is never found on headscarves of young women or grandmothers.
Я Алиме, сіздің жұмысыңыз өте қиын екен.
Alime, it is a really difficult job. It seems that you need to have excellent eyesight and great patience. By the way, I heard about an interesting custom. They say that if a guy liked a girl, he gave her a handkerchief. For what?
Была такая традиция.
There was such a tradition. If a guy liked some girl, he somehow gave her a scarf. And if she likes him, then she had to embroider either a corner or this handkerchief on four sides and returned it back to this guy. What if she doesn't like the guy? And if she didn't like him, then she did embroidery quite a bit, for the sake of respect. And in this way, she gave the handkerchief back.
И таким образом тоже возвращался платок.
Let's go back to your work. What are you embroidering now and what technique is used here?
Сейчас я работаю над изделием марама.
Марама.
Марама – это головное покрывало крымских татар. Женское.
Now I am working on a marama product. Marama is the head cover of the Crimean Tatars for women. Here we use the Tatar's helmet technique. Tatar helmet includes over 60 types of stitches. Here. Thus, the ornament is applied here, and we embroider each flower separately.
Алима ханым, байқаймын сіздің кестеңізді тігу барысында
I think you count every stitch.
санап отырған сияқтысыз, иә?
Yes, you correctly noticed this is counted embroidery. Tatar helmet. We count every cell to achieve the most even patterns. This is how we embroider.
Таким образом вышиваем. Есть другие виды техник.
There are other types of technology in our traditional culture. This is maklama. For example, it is used in a fiesque. This is the headdress of the Crimean Tatars. Is this a male or female headdress?
Қыз балалар.
It's female.
Тамаша.
Женская шапочка. Фес называется.
Ұстап қарау бола ма?
This embroidery is one-sided. Fez is a must-have wardrobe accessory for any Crimean Tatar woman.
Феска небольшой головной.
Fez is a small garment. Interestingly, it is sewn accordingly to a purely individual measure. For example, the height of the crown of the fez is the 4 fingers of the girl who will wear it. The difference between the top, bottom and bottom edge is exactly 1 finger.
Ровно в один пальчик.
This truncated cone headdress was worn by both young girls and older ladies. They were decorated with embroidery, all kinds of tassels, precious stones and golden coins.
Были случаи, по словам уже бабушки моей, во время депортации в сложных...
According to my grandmother, there were cases when during the deportation in difficult times, these coins saved lives. They exchanged 1 coin for a kilogram of flour, baked bread from it, shared among themselves, and thus people survived. Such a story.
Такая история.
Тамаша. Яғни...
Wow, it is like a small skull cap. And how many lives did it save?
Зор көмегі болған. Алима ханым, мен зерттеу жұмыстарын жүргізу барысында сонымен қатар көшпенді халықтың ұрпағы болғаннан кейін
Alime, in my research, getting to know one more craft, I definitely try to do something with my own hands. I would like to try and embroider something. Will you teach me?
көрсетіп үйретсеңіз нұр үстіне нұр болады.
I'll show you a few stitches, and then you try it yourself.
Тамаша.
Fine. During the time when I was studying the Crimean Tatar culture, I became a cook, a dancer, and a blacksmith. The time has come to master the art of embroidery.
Техники такие.
In the Tatar's technique, the helmet has such a seam as the raisin. It is shaped like a raisin. Well, the shape is visible.
Енді мен тігіп жатқанда
Well, in my work, one can't see the raisins, but I hope it will take the shape of that later.
болады деген үміттемін.
Right? If you don't tell me, I can now embroider an apple instead of raisins. So watch me. When I pricked my finger for the 10th time, I realized that I can't become the embroiderer. In general, the human nervous system consists of more than 85 billion cells, and so it seems to me that the craftswomen who create such masterpieces need twice as many nerve cells. Too painstaking work. The master with golden hands, Eldar, will now teach me pottery. What is the most important thing in working with clay? The most important thing is desire. If there is a desire, then you can achieve high results in any craft, in any business. With regard to the art of pottery, this is the desire to comprehend the mystery of making from clay on a potter's wheel. It takes a lot of patience and desire, and then everything will work out. Any person can do it. Can I try now? It will not work out right away, but with the help of a master, we will try to make some kind of dishes. Well, then let's get started. It turned out that before making any clay pot, it is important to properly prepare the raw materials. The clay needs to be worked well to make it soft, because with long storage, it dries up and loses its plasticity. And to return this property, you have to work hard. Of course, this business requires physical strength. Yes, I tried to make everything during this program. I made bakery dough. Now I am working with clay. This device looks like a horse, but we Kazakhs spend a half of life on the saddle, so it is not difficult to sit on it like this stuff. Should I press on? You need to center it. This requires a lot of effort, so that it won't move to the sides. This is the uncentered state, when the hand moves. That's out of center. This is more or less centered. One hand. Push as much as you can. No, from the side. As much as possible to tear it off. For others, it seems easy, but in fact, everything is not so simple. According to scientists, through the study of ceramics, you can learn a lot about the roots and kinship of archaeological cultures of antiquity, their interaction, the movements of peoples, about their everyday characteristics, and some aspects of worldview. Pottery can be found on the pages of history as far back as the Neolithic era. This is a special art that has come down to us through the centuries and continues to exist to this day. The very word ceramics comes from the Greek keramos. It means a product made from dried and baked clay. If we talk about the advantages of ceramics, then it is a practical and durable material. Some examples of it survive for centuries, but there are also disadvantages. Such dishes break easily. So look, we will now make a small bow, because it's hard. Yes, let's get something easier. Make something similar from a non-centered piece, on some kind of vessel. Press in the center. To the center. The hand should not move. Press. Press. More. More.
Стоп. Теперь к ладони большой палец.
A little more. Stop. Now to the palm of the thumb. You see, we have such a space. Now it is centered.
И опять.
Still pressing in the center. One more time.
Ладони к ладони, ага.
Psychologists advise doing clay modeling for those who want to relieve the brain and get spiritual pleasure. Because in the process, a person completely concentrates on his product and abstracts from everything else. This art develops thinking, a sense of balance, visual perception, and self-confidence. I tend to agree with this statement. I checked everything on myself. Initially, I planned to make a vase. I even imagined it in my head. But in the process, my vase turned into a bowl right on the potter's wheel. But for me, the result was not important. The most important thing is an unforgettable experience from the process itself. Yes, I got a tea bowl instead of a vase. But it is the kind of dish too. The world does not stand still. It spins like a potter's wheel. Years pass, centuries change, and perhaps it is important to be able to preserve what was left to us by our ancestors. Indeed, only by studying the past you can create the present in order to build the future. And I was convinced of this truth once again, thanks to the talented masters of the Crimean Tatar people. On this, my Crimean journey came to an end. To be honest, I'm a little sad to leave here. Black Sea coast, crystal clear Crimean air, the colorful atmosphere of Bakhchisarai, respect for the homeland and hard work of the Crimean Tatar people. All of this will forever remain in my memory. During this journey, I realized how, having lost everything, you can find strength and resilience in yourself to revive what was lost. Because I got to know better the amazing people of the Turkic world, the Crimean Tatars, who despite all the difficulties, for many years, far from their native land, never lost hope, and today revived the traditions and restored their original culture.